Hi, welcome back. Now we're going to begin talking about functions. Functions in C are one of the two most important parts of the language. The two most important parts of the language in C are pointers and functions. So here we go. Very important stuff. First of all, let's look at main. First of all, this doesn't look like it would do much of anything except printf. We have a bunch of things we've never even talked about before. But let's look at each of the functions that I've defined and then see what each of these lines does. So first of all, I've defined a callout function. We can see that function being called here or executed, but the function callout has a single parameter, a char star named string, at least named string inside the function, and then it says void. We haven't encountered void yet. If a function returns no value, then we must say that it returns void. Void means nothing for now. Just accept that. So we have void callout char star string. This means a function that returns no values that takes a single char star parameter named str. All we're doing here is we're wrapping that string, whatever it is, in new lines. So we're going to print a string with a new line before and after it. So when we say call out hello world, we should see new line, hello world, new line. Call out argv0, we should see whatever the name of the program is after a new line and then followed by a new line. So now let's look at a function that doesn't return anything and doesn't take any parameters. This is starline. All it does is print a bunch of stars and a new line. So here we have a couple of calls to starline. Starline, starline. All right, let's look at a function that returns a value, in this case a float, and it's called int2float, and it takes a single value, an int, and here it's called num. Now, this is something we have not seen before. First of all, the keyword return is what we use to return a value from a function. Return whatever we want to do. Well, when we want to convert an integer to a float, one way that we can do that is to cast the integer to a float. This is called a cast. It casts the type of this to a floating point number. Now, this cast to a float is not going to change the type of the integer variable num. Not going to do it. What it's going to do is num as a float. It's going to create a new float and convert whatever is in int into that new float. A cast is a type surrounded by parentheses, just like this. We can generally cast when there will be no loss of precision between the from type, here it's an int, and the to type, here it's a float. So what we're doing is returning a floating point version or a floating point value that is equal to the integer value num. And we call that up here. Where is it? Oh, there we call it. int2float 42. So this will return 42 point and then 6 zeros because floating points are always returned with 6 digits of precision. All right, let's look at another function. Here's a function that returns nothing and accepts no parameters. So this just counts to 10 and returns. We've seen this a couple of times before. This time we're using a short. Doesn't really matter. We could have used, since we're only counting to 10, we could have used a char type. Short count equal 1. While count is less than or equal to 10, count it, and then print a new line after you're done. So that just counts to 10 and returns. This last function prints a wedge of what kind of character, and the wedge will have number of lines of characters. So here we're returning nothing, and we are passing two parameters, a char called what, and an int called lines. I'll leave it for you to understand how this function works, but we'll see it when we call wedge with an @ sign and the number 3. Now, there's a couple of assignments, but I'll leave that until after we run the program. This is functions.c, so we want to make functions and then run functions. Whoops. There we go. So here we have the hello world. It's probably easier to do this if we do it like this. So we're going to call out hello world. Yep, we did that. Well, first we printed a star line. Then we did the call out hello world. There it is. Then we called out argv0. That's the name of the program. Another star line. Now we're printing the floating point version of the integer 42. So int equal 42, float equal 42 point, and then 6 zeros. We have another star line. We have count to 10. That worked. And then we have wedge with an at and 3 lines. So we have at. All right, so here's what I want you to do. A couple of things. First assignment is to study that wedge function, understand how it works, and then write and, by the way, call 4 functions like wedge that print wedges in the following configurations. Now, the number sign, it could be any symbol that you pass to the function, and the number of lines could be not just 5, but any number that you pass to the function. So we want a wedge that's printed in the same way as this one. So you could just copy this function. That would be fine. Then we want a wedge that prints kind of right justified. Then we want a left justified wedge that prints in the opposite order. In other words, the largest number down to the smallest number. And then finally, right justify that wedge. That's assignment 1. 4 functions that do something like these 4 diagrams. Assignment 2 is something for you really to think about, but I want you to try it anyway. So the following code snippet swaps the values of 2 integers. So if we have an integer a equal 1 and b equal 2, we make an integer called temp, and then if we set temp equal to a equal to b, and b equal to temp, then a will be 2 and b will be 1 in this case. I want you to try to write a function that does this. I want a function that takes 2 integers, a and b, and swaps their values. I don't want you to print out what a and b are inside the function. That's cheating. What I want you to do is have a function that before you call it, a and b are one thing, and after you call it, a and b are what each other were before you called the function. Can you do it? Were you successful? If you weren't, what do you think might be going on here? And can you think of a way to make such a function work? So something for you to think about. Try this before you start playing the next demo. Thank you very much.